Until I say otherwise, right now, Joe's our guy right now.
Have you heard the old saying, history will repeat itself? If you haven't heard it, you are seeing it in real time with the Indianapolis Colts.
He's had 6 turnovers last 2 weeks, 1 and 3 with him at the start of the season. Why is he still the guy?
Obviously, just a guy that's a veteran guy. We've had 2 games that, that he'd like to have back, but we'll keep battling through it and see where it goes.
Don't do drugs. If you're doing it, stop it. Get some help.
The Joe Flacco experiment has been a disaster, and you are seeing why the Ravens moved on from him way back then. The Colts are now reliving the year of 2022 when they decided to trade for Matt Ryan, and he proceeded to have the worst year in his NFL career. Joe Flacco is a comeback player of the year. Anthony Richardson had the tap out situation, so the move to bench him wasn't that much of a surprise. Many people believe that Joe Flacco gave the Colts the best chance to win and be competitive in the AFC South, which wasn't a bad take at that time. However, Joe Flacco would go on to have 2 of the worst performances of the 2 quarterbacks that we have had this season. With the chances of the Colts making the playoff getting lower and lower, it's time to switch back to Anthony Richardson. I'll explain why it is, as well as explain why I'm not upset that Anthony Richardson got benched in the first place, and why not putting him back in is actually worse than the move of benching him was to some people. But before we get into that, make sure that you guys like, comment, and also subscribe to the channel. We're on the way to 3,000 subscribers, and with that, let's get into this video. So we saw the tap out. It was a bad look, and everyone knows that. Your leader cannot take himself out of the game without people looking at it sideways. In a game that he did not have his greatest performance either. 175 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 interception, but he had a 30% completion percentage, completing 10 of 32 pass attempts. That is not going to cut it. This was without a doubt the worst game in his career. When people say the tap out had nothing to do with the benching, I don't know how much I believe that, but I'll let you guys decipher that out. We fast forward to Shane Steichen announcing that Joe Flacco is going to be the QB going forward for the up and coming game against the Minnesota Vikings, and we saw what I will call the same old with this offense. Joe Flacco is a statue in the pocket. He missed throws just like AR would miss throws. It was basically Anthony Richardson without athleticism. He did occasionally make the easy touch mid-range throw, but would offset that with a pick in that game. And against the Vikings, it eventually got ugly. The Colts lost that game 13-21. The Colts defense has been playing better and better as the season has progressed. Sam Darnold threw 2 interceptions, which in my mind I would think would give the team that you're going against a better chance to win if you're turning the ball over. However, Joe Flacco would go 16-27, 179 yards, and an interception of his own, one that was clearly directly to the opposing defense. Many saw this and said, okay, point proven. Throw Anthony Richardson in there and allow him to learn that way. Because if the ship is going to sink, at least it is going to sink with some hope of change. Me personally, I wanted Anthony Richardson to play against the Vikings before we considered benching him to see how he would respond to the adversity. It would have been a game where all the lights, all the eyes would have been on him, especially after the tap out situation. So I wanted to see how he would respond. But he got benched before that, and I understand it because you can't have your leader tapping out. So it is what it is. The Colts wanted to see how starting with Joe Flacco would do, especially against one of the best defenses in the league. But as we all know, he was bad. And then we have the Bills coming up, so they decided to give it one more shot. And in this one, it looked just like 2022 Matt Ryan all over again. A guy who cannot move in the pocket. Against the Bills, he was horrible. He had 2 touchdowns, but threw 3 interceptions and had a fumble. If AR did the same thing, it would have been even more backlash. He did complete 70% of his passes, so I guess that's something. A lot of that, though, was after the Bills went prevent defense. But the biggest reason to go back to Anthony Richardson at this point is because the results are still the same. And if by somehow, some way, you make the playoffs, you're more than likely going to be one and done. And at first I thought it would be crazy to say that they could make the playoffs until I looked at their schedule. Other than the 8-1 Lions and the Broncos, all of these teams are just as bad as the Indianapolis Colts. So we could see a situation where the Colts some way, somehow, win 5 of these next 7 games against these teams that are simply not that good, giving the fans false hope before losing to a team like the Bills in the playoffs. Assuming 9-8 will get you there, but honestly, it might not get you in the first place. Looking at the squad right now, I doubt we will go 5-2 over that stretch anyways, even with the easy schedule. It's probably time to let go of Chris Ballard. Some people also want Shane Steichen gone, but the man just won 10 games with Gardner Minshew. I think he's safe at least for another year. However, I do understand the outcry because some of his play calling has been very bad this year. A little bit too risky. When your personnel does not have what it takes to be that risky, you don't be that risky. On top of that, I understand a lot of fans are upset because he says it was his decision and his decision alone to bench Anthony Richardson, and now it looks like that decision was not the correct one. Whether it is or whether it isn't necessarily up for discussion. The discussion should be, are we getting different results with Joe Flacco at the helm? Nope. Results are still the same. And I have heard rumblings of some people believing that this was a Chris Ballard decision, but as of right now, we're going to say it was Shane Steichen's decision because he has said that Joe Flacco still may be the guy, and it's going to be up to him if that decision is changed. But the benching as a whole could turn out to be the right decision. I don't think it will hurt his progression, and if you give me the confidence argument on how you can kill a young QB's mental status if you bench him, then Anthony Richardson is 100% not the guy anyways. If benching him becomes why he isn't good, then he was never the guy. Now, this example is not 100% solidified, but in the last few weeks or so, Bryce Young has been playing better and better since his benching. He has won back-to-back games for the first time this season and is looking to be taking that next step, because sometimes you have to take a step back in order to take 2 steps forward, and that is what the Carolina Panthers are potentially seeing. That doesn't mean he's going to continue to do it, but he has definitely improved from what we saw at the beginning of the year. Sometimes when you understand that your job is not going to be handed to you, it changes your mentality. It makes the ones who actually want to be great continue to strive toward greatness, fix the little things that they probably were not doing before. But if you're not cut out for what you're trying to do, it can make some people fold under the pressure. What is Anthony Richardson going to do when he is reinserted into the lineup? Will it be this year? Will it not be this year? I'm not 100% sure, but I think he should be inserted back because Joe Flacco is not playing like he did in that season with the Cleveland Browns, and that's the main thing. I have already said this. This is not, and I repeat, this is not the same situation like Jordan Love and Aaron Rodgers. Aaron Rodgers is a Hall of Famer. This is not the same situation where the Kansas City Chiefs had Patrick Mahomes and Alex Smith. Alex Smith at that point in his career was still solid QB. So for anybody who thought that was the situation we was dealing with, it wasn't. But the Colts, I believe, hoped that we were dealing with something similar to that, and Joe Flacco could at least make things look good in order to keep morale high. And I know I've been hard on Joe Flacco throughout this entire video. However, I will say one thing in his defense. When the Indianapolis Colts are on offense, sometimes you see a lack of urgency. A lot of times you see guys drop passes, touchdown passes. The entire offense just looks shaky. But as we are seeing right now, morale is lower than ever. And so now we have a decision to make. Do you put your young QB in there, let him develop and see, does he actually have what it takes? Because you may need a complete restart from him as well. Or do you do more of the same? We'll see.